Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Social Audio Think Tank. Josh here from Australia. I'm here with Jackson.
Hello.
My co-host. And today we're talking about community radio, social audio, and we'll probably geek out on podcasting at some point, as we like to do that. So if you missed the last show, which was episode 1, basically the Social Audio Think Tank is about discussing audio in general, how people that produce creative audio at the community radio level in podcasting and also audiobooks and even music, if we can get some big producers in at some point, how all those things are able to be shared around the web, what it takes to be creative about it, and I guess our focus, unlike similar shows, I guess, in the same genre, we're focusing mainly on the creative side. So you're not going to find a lot of business consultants or podcasting consultants or anything like that on our show. It's more so going to be purely creative. So I'll throw it over to Jackson now, as he actually performed the interview with a well-known community radio presenter here in Melbourne, Australia, and Jackson's just going to fill us in a little bit on the tech that they used, which we do every episode. So you're going to get all the tech in one go. So if you're a big tech head, you're going to get that early each episode, which hopefully will keep everyone happy. And also Jackson's going to fill us in a little bit on his interview guest, who was pretty amazing when I had to listen to it. So take it away, Jackson.
No problem. Well, I spoke to Forrister Jenot, who is a co-presenter of mine at Southern FM, and we recorded it at Southern FM. So we had the Southern FM setup, which is, we've got the Sennheiser MD 421s. We've got a bunch of those running into our Elan Audio Hawk 12 desk, which the Elan Audio seems to be a pretty standard desk for community radio, and we run those through a sound card. The Focusrite Scarlett interface into recording in Audacity.
Awesome, very good. So there's a bit of the tech stuff. So we're off to a good start there. So do you want to just tell us a little bit more about Forrister, and maybe for the people overseas who might be thinking, oh well, these two guys are based in Australia. Remarkably different accents, but yeah, we're both based in Melbourne, and they're maybe thinking, well, what can I learn from a community radio presenter in Australia? He actually has, or his particular show has quite a strong following via the digital radio platform overseas too, for an Australian-based show. So do you want to tell us a little bit about that, and then we might leave the rest of the gold for the interview?
Yeah, well, Forrester's quite a music aficionado, and he presents a number of shows here at Southern FM. He does country, he does the breakfast show, and he's presented a little bit of everything in his time here. So he's very involved in the music scene, I suppose. So he knows a lot of the artists. He has a bit of a journalism background, and I guess he's just a music lover on the radio.
Yeah, it's excellent. And one thing, if this is your first time tuning in again, the interview portions of the show might be Jackson and I. It could be myself and a guest. It could be myself and several guests, and it could also be the same situation with just Jackson. So that we just found would be easier depending on the situation, that we didn't need a really, really ideal situation to be able to produce quality programs. And that's something we'll probably talk about a little bit in the future as well, that we're both of the belief that you do the best with what you've got, because if you're trying to create something creative and in audio, sometimes there's a habit that people have of just waiting till everything's perfect, and that can really stop things from getting off the ground. So you're going to hear that a lot from us when it's just us two talking in our sections. So we might cut to the interview now with Forrister, and you're going to hear a lot more of Jackson coming up.
I have with me Forrister Jenot, who is self-described as music lover, blogger, journalist, broadcaster, activist, dreamer, actor, and self-confessed One Directioner. Forrister broadcasts with me at Southern FM, a community station in Melbourne, Australia, and he also is a general music lover, promoter, and journalist. Hello, Forrister.
Good morning there, Jackson. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. So let's start with, why don't you tell me about your journey from music lover to where you are now as a music broadcaster?
I guess the shortest version of the story would be, I think Dad probably opened me up to a massively wide genre of music growing up as a kid. And I guess I've just always been in love with music ever since. So I play a lot of music. I would probably find life quite sort of dull without music in my life. I probably 20-odd years ago did a little stint of country radio here at a station in Sunshine a long time ago. And then I suppose I didn't have another stint in radio at all until I spent some time in the US and did again. It just happened to be country radio. Got involved in a little bit of promotional stuff there, which sort of, I don't know, gave me a bit of an interest, I guess, and an insight to, just how exciting it can be to be a presenter on a radio station. And then I guess I was fortunate enough too. I was working for Telstra, had a great mate who used to sit on the other side of a padded cubicle to me, and I used to just see the tops of each other's heads. And anyway, he was a broadcaster here at Southern FM, and we got talking. He said, you should come in and, sit in on a show one week and, I'll ask you some stuff about music. And I did that, and we did that quite a number of times every, few weeks. And as it turned out, he got a real job that he'd studied for in uni, left, and the opening came up here at Southern, and henceforth 3 years later I've got 2 shows here on Southern FM, and I love it. I love it.
Yeah, you've almost taken over, and but you also a music journalist and a music blogger. So tell me about those. How did you get into those?
With the music journalism stuff, it's a little bit sort of freelance. I've been lucky enough that I did a little bit of work for writing a column for Scene magazine, which is one of the main street press magazines in Brisbane. Stopped doing that just due to the fact that I sort of was running out of time. I had too many fingers in too many pies at the time. But I've been fortunate enough with Pearl magazine, which is on the south side of Melbourne here, probably the 3rd largest street distributed music mag, I guess, here in Melbourne. Was lucky enough to be offered a column with those guys, and it turns out that it's not just a column, it's pretty much a whole page, which is fantastic. So I get to promote acts and bands and musos that are happening on the northern side of town, where a lot of the music here in Melbourne happens. So we're trying to introduce the south side of Melbourne to a little bit more of what's happening north of the river. So that's pretty much how that happened.
The place where I would say you're most public is you're very active in social media. Facebook and Twitter. How many Twitter accounts do you have?
I think I was saying to the other day when we were chatting, I don't know, was it 13, 14, might be 18, I can't remember. I get this idea in my head and I go like, I've got to get the Facebook account for that or the Twitter account for that. Well, I've got the idea in my head, whether it's something I end up doing something with now, in the near future, or 18 months down the track, it sort of comes to mind. It's a bit like finding internet domains. It's the same thing. You go like, I better get that domain now, just before it becomes popular,
Yeah. Yeah, I know how that goes. I'm probably only a few behind you. Well, how do you find all these different mediums connect to each other? How do you find broadcasting supports your journalism and your blogging? And how do you find social media? Well, let's start with that. How do you find your social media supports your broadcasting?
Look, I've got to say, I think it's in today's technological age, I think it's extremely important to have the social media. It puts you out there to a bigger demographic than you'd probably normally have, or a different, maybe not a bigger demographic, but definitely a different demographic to what you may have streaming online. People may not have the time to tune in and listen to the show or what have you, but they like to see, they know you've got a passion for music, they know you're active in the music scene, they know that you have a radio show but may not be able to listen, but they can follow the show without even listening, I guess, by me posting what I'm playing via, Facebook or Twitter, and of course then they can keep track of what guests I may have on the show and that sort of stuff. So I think it's an amazing tool, and in the 20 odd years that the internet's been around, and I was fortunate enough to sort of be around when we didn't have it or when it first kicked off, I really don't know what you'd do without it, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I found you probably at Southern FM, you've garnered the biggest audience via social media, I would say, in that you've built a little community around yourself. This community you've built, have you brought that from your broadcasting or your social media, and how do you interact with that community? To
be honest with you, I think if you're talking about sort of maybe the number of hits or people that are actually watching or have seen a post, as you would when you look at your statistics, say on Facebook, for example, And it's funny, I was only looking at that yesterday, and I'm like, oh, wow, like I didn't realise I had 400 or 500 people see that particular post, which sort of amazes me. But I guess a lot of it carries through from maybe a personal Facebook page that I started, that I was only saying to an artist yesterday that that personal Facebook page is no longer so personal anymore, because I use it predominantly to express what I'm passionate about, and that's music, and probably my distaste in politics maybe. And that obviously follows, I use that platform to, and the same with my Twitter account, I guess, to then push people towards my social media sites, whether it be for Southern FM in general, or either of my two shows here at Southern, or I guess even for the music blog, Spreading the Seed, which I have as well. So, yeah, I think that's pretty much what it does and what it's good for, I guess.
Yeah. Radio as a medium is, well, it's known as broadcasting, and it's very much just a transmission out to anyone who wants to tune in, I guess. But then social media allows you to bring the people in and interact with them. So how much do you interact with your audience while you're on the radio?
As much as I possibly can for a male. It's apparently one of those things that we find difficult to do, is to multitask. And I have to say, one of the things with, I guess, say, community broadcasting as opposed to, say, commercial broadcasting, is that in community radio in particular, I think most people that are familiar with community radio stations will realise too that you're doing, as a presenter or a host or a radio broadcaster, you pretty much you're the editor, the producer, and the presenter all in one. So unless you're lucky enough to have a sidekick or a co-host, to be on Facebook and Twitter, or try to Facebook and Twitter as well as actually physically put a program to air, it's not an easy thing to do, but I try to do it to the best of my ability. But I do find that a lot of people will tune in now, whether it be car radio at home while they're getting ready to go to work, or even on the train. Like the amount of people that are tuned in via obviously mobile devices this day and age enables a lot more people to actually catch a program, because once you leave the house, you can't, unless you're carrying a portable radio. The portable devices like iPads and iPhones and Android devices have allowed a little bit more free roam. It's made it such a mobile thing worldwide. You can listen to broadcasting, whether it be commercial or community radio, anywhere on the face of the planet, any time of the day. It's pretty insane when you think about it.
Yeah, well, you mentioned the online broadcast. So Southern FM has an online stream of the entire broadcast, and I think you've managed to pick up a bit of an international following for a small radio station in the suburbs of Melbourne. To be able to pick up listeners from across the globe is pretty impressive, to capture their interest. So how have you gone about that, capturing the international audience? With
the initial program that I started here at Southern, which was, I guess, a slot that I took over from Will Quinn, he'd already amassed a little bit of a European following, and I know that I've kept a few of those listeners from Sweden and Norway and a few places like that. Not everybody is obviously listening live stream through our website. Some are doing it through TuneIn or those sorts of apps that you can get on mobile devices. But of course, I think it's the networking that I've done as well. So, for instance, a little bit of a UK fan base that I sort of have built has come through, I guess, searching for music on YouTube and SoundCloud, coming across an artist that I really enjoyed, and I thought, oh, geez, I want to play their music on radio here in Australia. And being a community radio broadcaster too, there's no set rules to what you sort of do, as long as it's all kept within the guidelines. But to be able to introduce some of those artists to radio here in Australia, where they wouldn't normally get any sort of airplay, has allowed me to then, by networking and becoming friendly with those people, and they put, I'm constantly getting emails and messages through Facebook and Twitter saying, look, I heard about you through, this particular artist, whether it's, Lewis Watson or Gabrielle Applin or whoever it might be. Can you listen to our music? And that's really how it's blossomed from there. And the same in the US, from artists in LA to New York through to, of all places, Columbus in Ohio, which is sort of, the middle of America. It's pretty bizarre. It still spins me out week to week.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the method, is you're not just putting your music out there and saying, this is the music I like, listen to it. You've basically used the power of your networks and your community to build your audience. So you've got all your different mediums. You've got your press, your blogs, your broadcasting. How much do you cross over content between those mediums?
The way I've got it linked up is every post that I post on say, my music blog, Spreading the Seed, then goes back to, it automatically posts straight to Facebook. I guess if I'm posting something on my personal website or my personal Facebook page, I should say, about something that's happening on one of my programs or at Southern just in general, I'll always, tag, say, The Breakfast Club, which is the show, and I'll also tag the radio station as well. And then obviously that shows up in other people's feeds. So I guess there is a lot of cross-promotion there, and a lot of it is made easy because of the way those social media sites are set up, or how you can actually set those sites up to benefit yourself right across the most popular social media mediums.
Which one do you reckon is your favourite?
I have to say I probably spend the most amount of time on Facebook. I have with Twitter, I sort of go through phases with it, and I'm on a bit of a on Twitter phase at the moment. I've sort of gone on and off that a little bit. Instagram is one of those things that I just can't. I can't do Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. It's just way too much. But definitely Facebook.
Okay. Since you love Facebook, then how much audio do you post on Facebook?
I would say that most of the artists that say I find that I might be maybe going to showcase on the show, I'll generally post something up on Facebook during the course of the week leading up to a show. I might add YouTube clips. It could be a SoundCloud, depending on where the music's being sourced from or what's available. Especially with overseas artists, you don't always have that readiness to grab a physical CD, and some artists don't have music on iTunes yet too. So it's probably it's a fairly big mix of YouTube, SoundCloud. Rarely do I ever post anything from say Unearthed or anything like that. Most of the soundbite stuff is either coming via iTunes, SoundCloud, or YouTube for artists, and then that's just all sort of linked back into the Facebook page for both shows. And of course, then the radio station gets tagged in it, and then I try to post as much as I can on the radio station's personal Facebook, or if not the website. And unfortunately, just sometimes you're time restricted as to just how much time you can spend. I probably should spend more time posting on our actual website than what I actually do.
As a consumer and a promoter, what's your favourite way to listen to music online? Is it SoundCloud, YouTube, streaming?
I'm not a big fan of such streaming sites as Spotify or RDIO, those types of sites. I mean, I have used them. I rarely ever touch those, simply because they still cater predominantly to major commercial mainstream music. So if you're looking for new and emerging artists, something different to offer your listeners, then I find that the places like YouTube, for example, where a lot of singer-songwriters are producing stuff and putting it online from their bedrooms, to SoundCloud is something that I just can't get enough of at the moment. I've recently just found a burgeoning singer-songwriter scene in South Africa that I had no idea even existed, from finding one artist that led me on to a half a dozen, and now I just can't stop singing their praises. But yeah, so I suppose it'd be YouTube and definitely SoundCloud currently. But then there's other places like Beat 100 out of the UK, which is a video-based website where artists can put their videos up, and then they're sort of ranked and charted. And to give an example, a mate of mine in the UK, I just put him onto that. I couldn't believe he didn't know about it, considering it's a UK website. And I said, look, you should check this out. I know it's only homemade videos you've got, but not everything that's up on that particular site is a commercial or professional video clip, but it is a video clip-based charting music website. And he put something up on there, and I think within 48 hours, later, he'd gone from 600 odd views to, over 1,500 views. So, those sort of things can work for you. I think it's a matter of seeking out and sourcing, where you can find your music. And I find those two places are probably the best for me right now.
There's a great one in Australia, which is AMRAP.
Oh, yes.
Which is Australian Music Radio Airplay Project, which I suppose is a social audio site, in that bands upload their tracks? Is it they have to upload an EP now, is it?
Yeah, I think it's when I first came across AMRAP, and I guess I neglected to mention that because it's a bit of a different format, but you're right, it is an audio streaming site in a sense, or directed specifically at community radio presenters at, I think we've got something like over 350 community radio stations within Australia, which means if you look at the average radio station having, say, 100 presenters, which a lot of community radio stations do across a whole grid, 100 times, 350, and the math on that is pretty easy as to where an artist can actually get their music or how many presenters they can get their music out to. But you're right, it's the Australian Music Radio Airplay Project, and it's a site where artists that have got recorded work can apply for an account. They pop their music up on AMRAP. AMRAP then offers services, so they can service your music to community radio broadcasters, because it's directed again at community radio, and all community radio presenters can log in and get themselves an account or create a page, and then you have at your fingertips literally releases coming out on a daily basis. And you have access to those quite often first before anybody else does, and then you can put those to air. It's one of my major sources for new Australian music coming out that obviously artists are wanting to get radio airplay on. It's a brilliant site, and any artist that doesn't have their recorded music up on the site is crazy in my opinion.
So as a promoter, you'd say to emerging bands, AMRAP's the place to be.
100%.
Where else would you send them to?
Obviously, too, because we're talking about social media. If for all artists, and I've actually been touting this on Facebook just in the last week or so in particular. I periodically put something up, but just recently, I've just repeatedly put up the same post that if you are an artist, you really do, and you've got recorded music, you need to send it off to AMRAP. They can distribute that music, to radio stations across the country. Not only that, if you put your music up on AMRAP, then we as community radio broadcasters can access your music, download it. Doesn't cost us anything. We can get it via a download link or via a physical CD, and which allows us to put it into a catalogue, say here at Southern FM, and then bang, it's getting played, and it's accessible by every other broadcaster at the station.
So that's a very specific niche in that's getting sent to community radio.
Yep.
How would you compare that to, say, SoundCloud, where
yes,
it's similar, but you're the same size fish in a much bigger pond?
I guess with social media sites like SoundCloud and YouTube, obviously you open yourself up to a worldwide demographic. Like you really are opening yourself up to everybody that has internet access on the face of the planet. Obviously, with AMRAP, that it constricts you to community radio broadcasters in Australia. But again, if you're wanting radio airplay, it's probably the number one place to put your music first, if it's recorded, obviously. And I think if artists have actually gotten to the point where they've recorded music, I'd like to think that they probably, in today's day and age, you've got to be silly if you don't have a Facebook account for your band or as a singer-songwriter. And the same with SoundCloud, because there's a lot of people going to SoundCloud now and putting their music up on there, and there's a lot of people just in general that are using SoundCloud as a player, a little bit like Spotify and other things, such as RDIO and stuff like that, because so many people are uploading music there now, and not everybody is a professional. A lot of people are making music at home that have not recorded anything, that may not even be, gigging out and about, but are putting things up on SoundCloud and YouTube, and people are picking up on it. And people talk. One person tells 10 others, and somebody else tells somebody else. And no, I think networking and using social media is extremely important as an artist, I think, today.
How do you compare the general sites like SoundCloud or any online streaming site to, say, the more curated choices of radio? Which do you prefer?
Me personally?
Yeah, as a consumer.
If I had to be really honest, I probably do both. I like the thrill of the chase, I guess, in finding new music and listening to somebody for the first time and having your absolute mind blown, or being reduced to tears of listening to a song from somebody, you know, it doesn't matter whether they're here in Australia or overseas, that you've found just, you know, like a needle in a haystack. And yet on the other side of the coin, you know, I also like to keep my finger on the pulse. I like, there are moments where I guess I do like to be sort of, you know, told what to listen to. You don't know what's good unless somebody sort of gives you an indication as to what is good, and then, you know, there's things like, for example, if I had to give you an example, Gaudier's song, you know, somebody that I used to know. I have to be honest, I wasn't the biggest fan of. I'm a massive Wally Tobacco fan and Basics fan, but I wasn't. It didn't hit me in the gut, you know, the first time I listened to that, and I had to go back after everybody started talking about it and listen to it again. And I've gone, you know what? That is really good. And then I think I got a hold of the album and listened to the album. The whole album is brilliant. So sometimes music doesn't grab you the first time round, you know, and you have to go back and listen to it despite how many people are telling you that it is good, you know. So I think it's a personal thing too.
Well, you're very much a music enthusiast. For someone like you, I'm going to guess it's not very difficult to get you out to a gig if you enjoy the band.
Oh, no, not at all.
So what is your opinion of bands on social media? Do you think is the general trend they're doing it right, or is the general trend they have a presence but they could be engaging you and their community better?
It's actually really funny that I think that you asked that question, because I often look at, you know, maybe new and emerging artists, maybe in particular, but I see artists, bands, singer-songwriters, what have you, maybe open up a Facebook page and they're using it, but they're not utilising it to its fullest potential, I think. And you need to keep your fans engaged. You're right. It takes nothing to get me out to see a gig, and I can be out 3 or 4 nights a week seeing live music. I think as an artist, regardless of whether you're just in a band or you're a singer-songwriter, whatever the case may be, I think it's extremely important as an artist. And I was saying this to a young lass just recently, that, you know, even yourself as a singer-songwriter, you should be getting out and seeing as much live music as you can, because it enables you to see what other people are doing, how they're holding themselves on stage. You're learning. It's a learning thing. So you walk out the door and pretend you're a sponge and soak everything up, and you save it all away, and then you just you flick through the files and pick out little bits and pieces that you need. But with social media, I think you have to be reasonably consistent. There's not much point in posting something today and then, you know, 3 weeks down the track, you know, posting something. I think you have to be proactive. And yeah, I mean, I do see people all the time that I think could be a lot more proactive on their social media sites. I remember getting onto quite early in the piece, I think maybe back to when I first sort of got onto Twitter. And I mean, there's a whole host of people out there, especially on Twitter, that are all about promoting social media. There are social media gurus and bloggers and stuff like that. And Ariel Hyatt is one that I came across very early in the piece. And if you're ever wanting, I guess, to learn a bit about how to throw yourself out there, you know, on social media, she's definitely somebody to check out, Ariel Hyatt. And I guess I've tried to take a few tips out of her book. And look, you know, I search the internet all the time. It's easy enough to get into Google and just say, like, how do I boost my Facebook post? Which is the best way to combine my Facebook with my Twitter, and, you know, how as a band, you know, do I build my fan base on Reverb Nation or what have you. It's as simple as, you know, jumping onto the, you know, internet these days and just typing the question you have straight into Google, and half the time the answers are there. YouTube, you can often get onto YouTube, type the same thing, and there'll be somebody who've done a video about it, you know. So there's no excuse not to be proactive, I guess, if you've got a social media site, to be honest.
You mentioned something at the start there, which was if you'd recommend to bands to go out and see bands. And I guess if you're going out and you're going to see a band and you talk to the band and you say, that was great, I have a similar sound, let's be friends. You go and like each other on Facebook, that's building your social network.
For sure.
And the same thing we were discussing earlier, that when you're broadcasting, you're collecting the bands and you're saying, I played you on my show, mention it to your fan base. Their fan base, however many of them there are, is mentioning your show, and it just sort of everything feeds into each other. So I guess that comes back to the social media concept in general, which is everyone makes friends, everyone supports each other, and that's definitely what I've found from social media when it works the best. Is that the same for you? That when
for sure,
when you get a community, it really, everyone works together.
Well, it's a community, but I think the word that you touched on is it's a network more than anything. And I know I've been found only because I guess I was given the advice, so I've continued for the last couple of years to pass it on and have full understanding of how it has worked for me. And I think it's extremely important. As I said, something that you touched on, and the word network. The best thing that you can possibly do is to network, and network. It doesn't matter whether you're a band member who's out at a gig with a copy of your own CD in your pocket or your satchel or your handbag, if that's what you're carrying with you at the time. Don't be afraid to sort of put yourself out there. And it's no different in doing it physically at a gig as opposed to being on Facebook and, you type in, the name of a band, and what's stopping you from, messaging that band that you're a fan of and saying, look, I see you touring Australia next year. We think we've got an awesome sound. We think we'd be a good match, like you said, or how about we hook up? It's an extremely important tool. And that's, I guess, what the social media network is all about. It's about community. It's about networking, and it is. I guess it is just what it is, isn't it? It's a massive network or networking tool.
I guess that's a good lesson for a lot of things, really. But as community radio as well, it's not just, don't just get in front of the microphone and say, "Here's my CD collection." Listen to it or don't. It's good if you want people to listen, get out there and make friends with them and build that network.
Exactly. Look, I guess, for example, I recently had been along to an Eskimo Joe concert. Fortunately for me, I know their publicist, so I was, then invited to the after party. Went to the after party, got caught up with a really good mate of mine who's probably one of the best radio pluggers in the business. And actually he was, it's an interesting story, but he was leaving and I walked him out just to say goodbye, outside of all the noise. And I noticed he had a CD in his hand, and I said to him, "Oh, so which sneaky little, bugger's given you, a CD while you're in there?" And he said, "Oh, he showed me," and I've gone, "I saw that girl downstairs." So my immediate thing to do was, okay, so there's a singer-songwriter downstairs or a member of a band, solo artist, female artist, has gone out of her way to network and corner, I guess, one of the better radio pluggers in the business, give them a copy of her CD, which is networking straight away. And automatically that snowballed, I guess, or dominoed. It started a domino effect. So I went back downstairs, searched for this girl downstairs within a crowded room, and straight away just said, "Look, I was talking to Frank Ferrasso, I saw that you gave him a CD. My name's Forrister. I work at Southern FM. I'd love to have the opportunity to play your music on air. So, if you want to send us a copy of the CD," which she did. And then it turned out that, I've been playing her music on air. Other people are now recognising who she is. And then I've just had her in and she co-hosted the show. So, again, a perfect example of just how networking can work for you. And again, the acknowledgement that she's getting through my social media now, and obviously other people on her social media sites are now seeing, well, okay, she's been into Southern FM, she's chatted with this radio presenter, he's obviously in love with and very passionate about Australian music, then maybe we need to get in contact with him and see whether he might be interested in our music. So again, it's a network and a community.
What would you say engages you most about music, audio, radio?
Wow. I know it probably sounds really cliche. I love my job. And I guess, I had somebody recently say to me, "Oh, it's nothing but a hobby." And I've gone, "Oh, man, you are so wrong. It's a job. But more than that, it's a passion. I love music. I don't know what I'd do without music in my life, but it also, presenting on radio and being a broadcaster, I guess it really is just that. You're a broadcaster, so you're broadcasting out to the masses new music. You're trying to, I guess, as much as the artist has a job to connect with their fans, I guess my job is to connect my listeners or listeners in general, whether they're here in Melbourne or overseas, with a new artist's music or a topic. And then it's, like I said, it's just a domino effect from there. I mean, I love what I do, and I am extremely lucky, I guess, to sort of be involved in the music industry and of course, community radio broadcasting. It's wonderful.
Well, thank you very much. Before I let you go, do you have anything you want to promote?
Okay, so I have 2 programs on Southern FM, a Monday morning breakfast show. So I get up nice and early at 4 o'clock. So that show kicks off from 6 through until 9 a.m. every weekday Monday. And it's called The Breakfast Club here at Southern FM.
88.3.
88.3 Southern FM.
.com.au.
That's right. And of course you can find my Facebook page, which is Breakfast Club 88.3, and then I do a country program on Wednesday afternoons between noon and 2, which is not just standard country. It's country, it's folk, it's newgrass, bluegrass, alt country, Americana. So really taking a country show back to where it should be, because country music's country music itself comes from blues and roots and rock and roll and a whole lot of other genres of music put together. And of course, Spreading the Seed is my my latest venture, which is a music blog. And I think if you just go to, at the moment, until I get an actual physical website, and I'm working on that one, it just costs a little bit more money and a bit of time, but it is Spreading the Seed. So it's SPREADN, the seed. So it's a bit of a slang Aussie cut down version, spreadingtheseed.tumblr.com. And of course, as I said, you can tune into Southern FM online streaming at southernfm.com.au 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, all year round, just via our player, top right-hand corner. Just press, all you have to do is press the little green arrow, bada bing, bada boom.
Or find the TuneIn radio app on mobile.
Yes, exactly. I probably should be getting paid from TuneIn the amount of times that I plug that. So, if you're wanting and it is free, it's an FREE app. And you can get it for both iPhone and also for Android users. And so you can use it on your laptop, your iPad, or your mobile phone. You can listen to us live streaming anywhere in the world. And really quickly, I should tell you a really quick story before we do go, is to give you an example how good that works. I had a mate from Tassie, was across in Playa Escondida in Ecuador in South America, probably a little bit over 12 months ago now. And he was 300 feet or whatever it was up the side of a mountain, sheltering in a sort of cave alcove during the middle of a thunderstorm. Had internet connection, bang, listening to us from Ecuador, which is pretty amazing. So it just goes to show you just as to how far we do broadcast, I guess, pardon the pun.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
You're more than welcome. Thanks for having us, Jackson. It was sensational.
So how good was that? Jackson and Forrister talking a lot of music in there, which is great. I'm a massive music fan. I'm in a couple of bands, so that was just an awesome conversation for me to hear. A couple of real music lovers going at it and also talking about producing community radio and then live streams and all those things that us audio geeks seem to love. So, as we mentioned in episode 1, we're actually going to finish up all the episodes with a little bit of a debate. Or it might not be a debate, but just a discussion about things that I've got 6 podcasts. None of them are massively popular, but I've experimented with every different kind of setup, different hosting, different website options. I've produced well over 100 episodes now of all different kinds of content as well. And Jackson's a big-time community radio guy, and he's also got a few podcasts. We're going to talk about, something that maybe is seen as an industry standard that we may or may not agree with. And I've got that one secretly built up for today, so Jackson doesn't know until I drop it on him what it's going to be. And then we're going to share our favourite podcast episode of the week. So that can be anything. So it's just a fun way to end the episodes. So my potential myth that may need to be busted today is this, Jackson.
Yep.
Do you think for, let's just take a podcaster or someone that's recording audiobooks or a program at home by themselves, completely solo, not doing any mixing of live sounds or anything of that nature, with the quality of USB mics now, does one absolutely need to get a Heil PR40 or an RE20 or something of that quality, an SM7B, or even better, like a Bayer U99, I think it might be? The tech geeks are probably going to kill me. I'll probably just stuff that up. But even the step beyond, like the Heils and that sort of stuff. Or could you actually realistically get away with having an ATR 2100 or a 2005, or my personal favourite USB mic? It's quite an expensive one, but it's a MXL USB 009, and I've found that to be actually better than my Heil PR40 up until this point, because I have quite a sibilant voice. Do you, as someone who works in community radio and also podcast, do you think that you really need to go out and get a massively expensive mic if you're only doing solo shows?
Well, I would say as the technical manager of a community radio station, if it was simple enough to have 4 USB mics running at the same time, I'd have the community radio station running USB mics, which is slightly different than podcasting because we've got all the other back end equipment, the compressors and that stuff, and the quality of the FM broadcast isn't always perfect. So that sort of whatever problems you're going to get from the USB mics, I think, is
maybe forgiven a little bit.
Yeah, which is different to podcasting because I suppose you've got the MP3 compression. But anyway, the point is, yeah, I think USB mics are fine.
I've got a strange opinion on this. I've gone backwards and forwards on it. And I think I kind of just lucked out more than anything with getting the MXL USB 009 because it sounds incredible.
Yeah.
But that was actually nearly double the price of my Heil PR40.
Yeah.
And the reason I got that is because I thought I was going to be doing really long... Well, I do quite long consultations with people via Skype. And I also was recording a lot of screen capture videos. And I just wanted a high-quality sound, so those videos stood out, which it worked for that. But now going back, the thing that I've been thinking about is this. When you've got the dynamic mic, I think that overall, via XLR to a mixing desk, I've got a CL1 cloud lifter for anyone out there. It's a really nice, clean gain boost for the mic, so you get more out of the mic without having to crank all of your preamps and noisy parts of a mixer. I think that's probably the best sounding setup. But I think the thing that people need to be mindful of is that if you go out and buy an ATR 2100 if you're in Canada or America, or an AT2005, which is a similar mic, just more robust. I've owned both, and I actually had a 2100 die, so I can say that unequivocally that the 2005 is more robust. I think you're going to get a great sound at basically a replaceable price, under $100. If it doesn't suit your voice, you haven't gone and banked $400 on a microphone.
Yeah.
Whereas with something like the Heil PR40 or an RE20, I think if you know that it's right for your voice, it's still the best choice. Because they have just a natural warm tone, they're kind of tweaked, so you get a good balance. And if you're into that kind of real sizzly, kind of boomy sound, you kind of get that naturally with those mics, which you don't out of an AT2005, I've found in my experience. I think that if you go through the process of actually choosing the right dynamic microphone for your voice and get one that's kind of perfect, it's always going to be better. That's just my personal opinion. Because USB has a lot of problems. Like I know sometimes there's just my computer and my microphone, the MXL, just don't agree sometimes, and I get a completely different sound without changing any settings than when I got the day before.
Yeah.
So that to me is kind of unreliable. But yeah, there's just a problem with not being able to test dynamic mics. So I think if you don't have the option to go test a heap of microphones, just get a USB mic and it might be absolutely perfect.
I think you hit on something there, which is finding the mic that suits your voice. If there's a USB mic that your voice sounds great on, then use that one. I think that's true also in I guess the entire setup. Whatever the setup that's going to suit your workflow, I suppose. If you don't want to pull out the mixer and whatever else every time, it's going to stop you podcasting.
Yeah, that's
it's
right.
going to become a chore. Whereas if you plug in the USB mic, especially then you can do it mobile, you can take it with you, you can podcast wherever you like.
Excellent. So basically, I think we're both in agreement that regardless of what mic option you get, you really need to go out of your way to test some of them. But if you want almost a safer option, you're probably better off going for one of those cheaper USB microphones.
Yeah.
A decent one. And the good thing about the Audio-Technicas is, they're XLR as well, so that means you can run it into a mixer or you can run it straight to your computer.
If I started podcasting now, that's the one I'd get, yeah.
I would probably just run with my 2005s.
Yeah.
My voice naturally just sounds better on that than the Heil PR40 because I've got a very sibilant voice.
Yeah.
The Heil PR40 just sucks that up, and no one was talking about that, any of the pro guys.
Yeah.
And, I actually sound better naturally on a mic that only costs about a third the price in Australia. So, you never know.
Yeah.
So you've got to try and test them. And I guess going down to your local community radio station might be a way to even put, like I've never spoken into this microphone before, and I guess we'll find out in the finished product how my voice sounds on there, but that might even be a good way to try out microphones. If you're wondering how do I go try out different mics, go to your local college station or maybe even go ask a friend that you know already has a show, can I try out your mic, before you go and spend hundreds on the wrong microphone. Cool, so I think that's pretty much done. You're always safe. I would suggest most people just get the ATR-005 just as a backup.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. So as mentioned in the first episode, Jackson and I are going to finish up most of our episodes with a quick podcast recommendation of the week. So I might go first. And this is for anyone who's interested in new media and audio and podcasting and that space itself. There's a really great episode of the New Media Show with Todd Cochran and Rob Greenlee, who are two big players in the podcasting space. I won't go too much into their history, but they're heavy hitters and they're great guys, and it's an awesome show. They actually had Rick Calvert on, who has NMX, so anyone out there who's involved in new media. So New Media Expo CEO and founder. And he was angry on that episode about some things that were said in previous episodes, and I think that there was no malicious intent by the previous guests or anyone involved, but it's the first time on that show I've really heard someone go on there and be really brutally honest, and it was awesome. And it was directly related to our space. And it was quite a bit longer than some of their other episodes. They can range anywhere from 50 minutes to an hour and 40 sometimes. But Rick Calvert, Todd Cochran, and Rob Greenlee talking out about conventions and why maybe there's a tendency for people in the audio space, particularly podcasting, to be super protective and want it to grow to a certain point where it sustains them, but not to the point where it sustains everybody. So I just thought it was interesting, and I really enjoyed it. So the New Media Show, episode 40. So what were you after, Jackson? What did you have a listen to this week?
Well, we mentioned in the previous episode, Welcome to Night Vale, and that was a show, I listened to it a while back, and I couldn't really get into it. But then I decided, instead of starting at episode 25 or wherever I started, I'd go back to episode 1, and I definitely got it. I got Welcome to Night Vale, so I would say the pilot of Welcome to Night Vale is my podcast episode for this week.
That's great, mate. So thank you for joining us on the Social Audio Think Tank. Thanks, everyone. Talk to you soon.